This video is about the MIDI import and export feature in Korg PA series. With this feature, we can create style using the sequencer on the keyboard or even with an external DAW software. This will be very useful when creating lengthy patterns like intros and endings. Going to the style creator. Selecting new so that we have an empty style. Now to import a MIDI file, go to the import export page in the menu. This is the import page. Here we can select a MIDI file to import. Now we need to select an element and chord variation to import the MIDI into. This is V1 CV1 by default. It means chord variation 1 of variation 1. When we import a MIDI file, it would import to a chord variation of an element. We can import another MIDI file to another chord variation of the same element. Pressing execute. Now the import is complete. It plays fine. Now let me explain how it works. There are some specifications for the MIDI file to be imported. If everything is as per the specifications, the import process would be very simple. The MIDI file should be created with the tracks in an order. The bass pattern should be in track 9. 10 and 11 should be drums and percussions. Tracks 12 to 16 can be used for the accompaniment 1 to 5 tracks. So if there is data in the other tracks, those would be ignored while importing. When we import a MIDI file, the sounds may be automatically detected depending on how it is set in the MIDI file. But the settings in the style like the key and chord, guitar mode, etc. are to be set manually. I will show you these scenarios with different MIDI files. Let me import another MIDI file. This time importing to variation 2. Selecting V2 CV1. The guitar notes are sounding out of tune. The reason is the notes in the track and the key and chord setting for the track are not matching. All the tracks have C major by default. So when the imported track has a different chord, the chord generation would be affected. Let us check the notes in this track. This is F sharp major chord. So we need to set F sharp major as a key and chord for the track. Now it is playing fine. Let us import another file. Importing to variation 3. This has a similar issue. This time it is because one of the tracks is a guitar mode track. So we need to set the track type to guitar. That is fixed now. Let us import another one. Selecting intro 1. This one has multiple issues. It starts with an empty measure. Some tracks are not playing the exact thing as in the original MIDI file. I created this MIDI file in the keyboard sequencer. Let me open it in the sequencer now. Here the track 9 is a drum track. The bass track is 11. But this MIDI file plays fine here. There is no empty measure at the starting in this file. In fact, there is an empty measure, but when playing the song, it is skipped and starts from measure 2. But when it is loaded into the style creator, it includes the empty measure as well. The first problem we need to fix is the order of the tracks. The bass tracks needs to be moved to track 9 and the drums in the track 9 need to be moved to track 11. We can do this in the song edit page. We can also do it in the style creator after importing it if there is an empty track. Let me first show you how to do it in the sequencer. After this, I'll show you how to do this in the style creator. Select song edit. Now select copy tab. First step is to change the mode to overwrite. We need to move the contents of track 11 to 9. But if we copy it directly to track 9, the data in track 9 will be lost. We need the original data in track 9 to be moved to track 11. So I'm copying track 11 to an empty track. Here we don't use the tracks 1 to 8. So copying it to track 1. Selecting all the measures in track 11. This will be copied to measure 1 of track 1. That is copied. Now copying track 9 to 11. Now we can copy track 1 to 9. This will bring the original data in track 11 to 9. I am deleting the data in track 1. We don't need it anymore. Let us preview it now. This is ready for the import now, but I am not saving this file. I'll show you how to make this change in the style creator after importing it. Importing the same MIDI file into intro 1. We still have the empty measure. The sounds for the track are not automatically detected. We will fix all these issues. The empty measure is automatically inserted from the sequencer when we save the song. We can remove it from the cut option in the style edit menu. This will remove one measure from the starting of the intro for all the tracks. Now the empty measure is gone. This method has a limitation. A style element can contain only up to 32 measures. So when we try to import an intro with 32 bars, the empty measure will cause the last measure to be skipped while importing. So even if you cut that measure here, the last measure will not be recovered. There is another option to solve this issue. I'll show it in a few minutes in this video. Let us fix the next problem. The sounds for the track are not automatically detected here. We need to assign them manually. Now we need to swap the bass and percussion tracks. Going to the Style Copy menu. Here we can use the same technique which we used in the sequencer. But this will be possible only if you have an empty track in a style element. Otherwise we have to do it in the sequencer before importing. I am moving the percussion track to accompaniment 5. Now the bass track to percussion. Now accompaniment 5 to bass. We can delete the accompaniment 5 track now. We still have one more problem to fix. This is actually an 8-bar pattern, but the MIDI file has some empty measures at the end as well. So they are also imported. We can set the CV length and record length to 8. That will fix it. This file we imported was created in the sequencer of the keyboard, but the previous ones were exported from styles, so they would work well when importing. The MIDI files which we create using a DAW or the onboard sequencer will need these issues to be fixed manually. Next is exporting the style as a MIDI. We can export an element or the entire style as a MIDI file from the style creator. We can then edit it in a sequencer and import it again to the same or another style. So you don't have to depend on the style creator always to create a style. I'm selecting Edit. The selected style is opened here. Going to the Import Export. Now selecting the Export tab. This will export the selected element's code variation to a MIDI file. Now the CV1 of variation 1 is selected. Pressing Execute. This will save the MIDI file. Now that is exported. I'm going to import it to a new style. Before that, let me note down the settings on the tracks. We need to manually set this after importing. These two are guitar tracks. The chord used is C minor 7. Let me close this style and start with an empty one. Now selecting import. This is V1 CV2, changing it to V1 CV1. The sounds are automatically selected. We need to set the other options manually. Setting the guitar mode. Now the chord types. So far we have been importing and exporting each element individually. But there is an option to export and import the entire style as a single MIDI file. Opening this style for editing. Going to the Export tab. Now keep the Shift key pressed and press Execute. This will export the full style as a single MIDI file. The different elements would be separated by markers in the file. If you open it in an external sequencer which supports markers, you can see the details there. I have opened this file in Cakewalk. These are the markers. Each element and code variation are separated by markers. We can modify this file here and import the updated one to the same style or to a new style. The marker name should follow the naming convention. For example, this is V1 CV1, which means variation 1, code variation 1. This is I2 CV1, which means code variation 1 of intro 2. Selecting the same file we exported. Now for importing a MIDI file with markers, press and hold Shift and press Execute. This will import the file and split the file into respective elements and code variations based on the marker data. Now all the elements are imported. We still need to set the guitar mode and chord types manually. I am skipping the chord type. Let us preview it. All the elements are here. I have made a MIDI file in the sequencer with the intro, variations and fills in a single file. Let me go to the song player. This is a file. The first 8 bars are for intro, next 2 bars are for variation 1, the next bar is fill 1, next 2 bars are variation 2 and the next bar is fill 2. Since it is created in the sequencer, there are no markers yet. We can go to an external sequencer to insert markers and import this file. But there is an option to add markers in the song player here. Press the marker button. Now we can play a song and insert markers while it is playing. Now the markers are added in the exact positions. The first one is at measure 2. This is because it is skipping the empty measure at the starting. Now the names are to be edited. We can edit each marker and update the names. This is intro 1, so naming it I1 CV1. V1 CV1 for variation 1. F1 CV1 for fill 1. Variation 2. fill to. Now we can save these markers to the MIDI file. Press the Save MK button. I'm saving it as a new MIDI file. Now going to the style creator. Pressing and holding Shift. Now executing. Now the patterns are imported to the respective elements. This file had the bass and percussion tracks in the correct order, so the track conflict was not there. There was no empty measure at the starting of the elements. This is because of the markers. I'm setting the sounds for the tracks. This is set in variation 1. We need the same sounds in the other elements as well. There is an option to copy the sound selection to other elements so that we don't have to manually do it in every element. Go to the page menu here. Select Copy and select Sounds. This will copy the sound selection to all the other elements from the current one. There is one issue to fix here. The fill 2 has 4 bars, but we actually had only 1 bar in it. This is because there were some empty bars at the end of the MIDI file. So those will be included in the last element. I'm setting it to 1. Let me show you one more option. I'm going to import another file into Intro 2. Selecting Intro 2. This has 32 bars, but when we imported the individual element, there is an empty bar at the beginning. This will skip the last bar in the actual pattern. We can fix it with a marker. I'm going to the song player. Now adding a marker. This is at bar 2 now. Renaming it to I2CV1. Now importing with holding Shift. This will import the file into Intro 2. Now there is no empty measure. This MIDI file we imported had only one marker. So when we import such files, only the elements for which there are markers in the file will be affected. The other elements will not be deleted. So that is MIDI import and export in a style. With this feature, we can create styles using the sequencer or external DAW softwares. This will be very useful for lengthy patterns because there is no bar copy option in the style creator. With sequencer or DAW, it can be easily created. Then we can import it to the style creator. This is the 14th video in Korg style creation series. If you haven't watched the other videos, I have given the link to the playlist in the description. You can watch it from there. There is also another series with sound editing for Korg arranges. That playlist is also in the description. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.